Evening, everybody. How's it going? Comic Crack here with another mind-boggling video in a row. It's been one of those weekends. I've read a fair bit, although maybe not as much as I'm thinking right now, but I've also picked up a couple of things this weekend. And just felt like talking. I just feel like videos these days. It's just one of those things. If you haven't seen it yet, for those of you who don't follow or pay attention to the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, they did a Chris Claremont interview. I've started watching it. I have to say I'm struggling a bit to get through it. I'm just over an hour into it. There's been a couple of things for sure that have been interesting, but I'm finding it a little challenging listening to him speak, but it doesn't mean that there isn't anything there and you shouldn't check it out. It's interesting. He started touching a little bit on kind of the bullpen and the way things were going at the Marvel offices, and just talking a little bit about writing and the importance of, and I mean, maybe this is a no-brainer, but the importance of a really good relationship between a writer and an artist, and how you can potentially do that. And part of that is letting the artist do the art, letting them go, not writing such a detailed script that they don't feel that they have room to breathe within it, like giving them the credit that they deserve, especially if you're working with artists of a certain caliber, which I'm guessing that for a lot of his career, he had that option to do so. I'm not an expert on him by any stretch of the imagination, but, and again, maybe it's a no-brainer, but that idea of that collaboration, and he did get to one point, we'll probably talk about it on Friday on Adam's channel as well too, but he did make one point during the conversation about how he talks that he started going down a path of the writer is a little more important than the audience. And I kind of perked up, because that's the kind of, I would love to hear that perspective a little more on their channel. They are very art centric, and I love them for it. And I think it's great. I applaud them for having interviews now with a couple of writers. I would love for them to get to a writer that kind of holds that belief a little more firmly, who maybe writes a little more detailed script and has a bit of an idea in their head that I am writing it. I do have this idea that I just can't draw myself, but I am very clear about how I want this book to look like, or how I want it to flow and how I want it to read. I think that would be a really interesting perspective. Not that I know, there's not names that pop into my head that maybe lean that way a little more, but I'm sure that they're out there. I think that would be a fascinating interview to hear, just mainly based on that idea not being explored as much, and due to who the hosts are. I think that would be something to watch. So one of our flea markets has opened up, one called Mulvey. And Mulvey has Winnipeg's own Greg Harder working there. And Greg I've been talking about him for a while. I've traded some books with him. I bought some books with him. He was the guy that was supplying a lot of the Comics Journal back issues that I was finding. Got quite a stack from him, I don't know, probably about a year ago or so at this point. So throughout the lockdown, he's been sending out emails to a bunch of people when he's kind of updating lists, like Charlton lists, Western Comics lists. He had a magazine list that I found some stuff on, and he's getting close. He was telling me today, oh, hey, how's it going? Look at that. Sleepy Reader, 64-page, Gore Vidal. Sleepy, I sent you a message on Twitter. If you're around and you're interested, just hook up to your Twitter account. I sent you a link there. Gore, same with you. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about, I know that especially you in 64-page, you're very kind of, here's the comics, here's my hands. But if you guys are interested, please let me know. I can easily send you the link. And yes, Gore, I did find more Vertigo, and that's something that I was going to talk about because I started reading a couple of them. So anyway, Greg was sending out these lists during the lockdown, and I found a couple of things, specifically in his magazine one. I'm not a big Charlton collector. I'm not a big kind of Marvel, DC, Western reader. I sent it already, D. Just check out your messages there on your Twitter. I'll just check that it's here still. Yeah, it's in there. So something that I don't come across, we were watching, my son and I and my wife, we watched a couple of Tarantino movies. My son's never seen Tarantino movies, so we watched Death Proof. And in Death Proof, there's a scene where she goes to the magazine rack to look for a specific magazine, and there's copies of Psychotronic on that magazine rack. It's a magazine that I just do not find. I do not see anywhere. I only have 2 issues previous to these 3 that I grabbed from Greg, but it's one that kind of just has a rich history, and it's really praised in the kind of world of movie magazines, especially for these kind of movies. So he had a few of them. Issue number 4, which has David Carradine, and we started watching Kill Bill. So we watched the first Kill Bill movie last night. So that was a nice kind of fluke that it was a David Carradine interview in the first issue. And then issue number 15. And I love these covers. Just started flipping through them, all sorts of things, reviews, interviews. Oh, here we go. Let me just add you there. Add to stream. Hey, look at that. Well. I can't hear you there. Maybe you're muted. Oh, there you are. I hear you now.
You hear me now?
You
okay. Yeah,
I'm just going to turn down my speaker. It might be a little echoey. Hello.
Hey, I'm a little discombobulated, but
oh, that's okay. That's all right.
Just came from a family scene, but
oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, but bedtimes, I don't know. We're going through a phase, even though she's 11, where bedtimes are rough. Maybe because of the whole COVID virus thing.
Oh, really? Hey, yeah. Like she just doesn't want to go to bed, or all of a sudden has all this energy.
That and becomes extremely emotional.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. Understood.
So I think a lot of it has to do with, being shut in for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's going to be an effect for sure.
So, yeah, anyway, interesting times as a parent, eh?
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, honestly, yeah, it's true. Enough said. It's totally true. It's an interesting time for sure. There's ups and downs.
How old is Lillian now? I have trouble keeping track.
Lillian is 6 now, and then Jaden is 14. So he was over this weekend, and it was really nice for them to kind of spend some time together because she's really been missing him. And obviously she hasn't seen many friends or anything other than kind of FaceTiming and Skyping and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she was really loving it this weekend. She spent the whole weekend like right beside him. Anytime he'd sit down, she'd sit right beside him. And it was really nice to see them kind of have that interaction. Oh, I think you froze there.
I did? Oh, no. Yes, I did.
Oh, your video did. I can hear you, though. Yeah.
Huh.
I'm sure it'll pop back.
Yeah, the internet has not been very good lately either.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you. It's been a while. It feels like it's been a while for a live interaction.
True. So anyway, you were in the middle of stuff, and I just jumped in here.
Oh no, that's fine.
So do you remember what you were talking about when I jumped?
I was just showing the Psychotronic. I was just gonna basically all I was gonna do was go through. I don't know, how does that work? Hey, that works pretty good.
Maybe I should rejoin or something. Maybe that would work.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, give that a shot. So basically I hear you, Gore. Know that the invitation is always there, though. I do understand. There's been quite a few people throughout my time here on YouTube that prefer to have a very specific view when it comes to their videos, and they're not comfortable showing their face for whatever reason. Privacy. I totally get it. if that ever changes, please let me know, because I would love to be the first to have the one and only Gore Vidal on a live video. There you are. You're back.
There
I can
I am.
see you
I'm
now.
black and white now.
Excellent. Perfect. We've
I
gone
did
back in
something
time.
to my settings without knowing why.
Oh, well, that's okay. It looks cooler.
It looks cooler, yeah.
Yeah.
More classic. So you've been getting those
so-
psychotronic stuff.
Yeah, just a few of them, which have been really nice. Like it's like I was saying, it's a magazine that I've always just heard a lot about, but because I don't see them anywhere, I've never actually read them. I mean, I think it was because it was, this is what, 99, I think was issue 4, 1990, sorry, not 99, 1990, I think it was. And I think maybe at that time, there just wasn't a lot of talk about these done in a very kind of professional, maybe a more professional way. Even though these first issues, they started definitely more zine-like, paper covers, that sort of thing. So it's cool to have some actual physical copies as well.
There was
nice
a video store near me. It actually still exists, but no, I never remember to go to it anymore. That has a whole section called Psychotronic.
Yes.
So I don't know if that comes from the magazine or the magazine named itself after a film term for.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that goes either, because I've always heard that term as well too, but I don't know in relation to if it's something they took from the magazine or vice versa either. Yeah, I mean, it just definitely has that. Those films have that kind of, and I guess it also encompasses all sorts of things. Like in one of these, they talk about Mondo movies. They're talking about kind of exploitation and horror movies, and it seems a lot of different genres. So I'm
maybe
not
just all the most
certain.
extreme. All the most extreme ends of the B movie is too high of a grade, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of the alternative low budget movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sight and Sound. And I think Sight and Sound is still around, possibly Film Comment too there, Gore Vidal. I haven't visited the movie section in the bookstore for a while, or the magazine section in the bookstore for a while, but I believe both of those are still around. And then just the other thing, and maybe actually this might be good timing, Damien, because I'm realizing that, like many things, there's a lot of gaps in my knowledge of stuff. But one of the things I grabbed this weekend, which only occurred to me tonight, why I recognized the title, I grabbed 2 issues of Black Orchid, Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. And I just finished reading the first issue, and it's really, really good. And there's a lot of, she's talking about connecting with the green. And then when this guy is kind of giving her a history of who she is, he's talking about like Alec Holland, and he's talking about the Floronic Man, and he's talking about Poison Ivy. And then I'm like, why is this name? And then I look on the Phantom Stranger comics that I have, and of course, right down at the bottom is like Beware the Black Orchid. And I don't know why that didn't occur to me. So do you know anything about the character? Do you have any insight for me?
I'm afraid I don't.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. No,
I
that's
recently bought, I think, some comics that were her early stories, but I haven't read them yet. So I really don't know much. And usually I've picked up some lore about characters, but that's one that's kind of slipped by me. I think that was that Neil Gaiman's first comic book.
Oh, is that true? Okay. See, if that's the case, I do not know. Let's crack one open and see the year. Let's have a dig. But I really liked the first issue a lot. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Gaiman was kind of like friends with Alan Moore, and Alan Moore recommended him or something. That's my memory of it. Yeah, I think he was a writer, but he wasn't yet a comic book writer. And if that is his first work, he now says it was bad. But
really?
With Dave McKean doing the interior art, though, is very fascinating thought.
The art is beautiful. 1988 is the copyright in this one. I'll just show you a couple of pages that really stood out to me. When I was reading a little bit online about it, the classic Wikipedia page that always comes up first, apparently he had wanted to do a sequel, but they didn't want him to do a sequel with Dave McKean. And he said, well, then I don't want to do a sequel to it, because I either want him as the artist or someone equally as stunning. So,
oh my, that and I mean, really
pages like that, really nice.
Yeah, very nice.
And then just the transition from these color pages to kind of almost a black and whitish type of feel to it, right? When she's transitioning from.
And then when you think of that coming out in 1988 from DC, then that's even more stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was pretty impressed with this first issue. And I mean, I always thought that when I saw the title, I just assumed that it was part of the whole Sandman universe and that sort of thing, but completely wrong about that.
But so, it came before.
A really nice surprise. Sorry?
It came before. I suppose it was Gaiman's warm-up to doing Sandman.
Yeah, yeah.
As Gore says, it would have been the eve of Sandman in 88.
Yeah. So those were really great. And unfortunately, what I did also find out while I was reading online, there's actually 3 issues. I was only able to grab 2. It was one of the guys on the Comic Addicts, and I just thought it was a 2-issue series, because normally those guys on that Comic Addicts group, when they sell miniseries, I very, very rarely see them sell like 1 issue of a 3-parter or 2. They usually just have the whole thing. So I just assumed it was the whole series, which bad on my part, but still, it's
maybe
nice to get it.
The person selling it didn't realize either.
Yeah. And then speaking of Sandman, another one that popped up, and it's one that I used to have, the Death, the High Cost of Living, the 3, and now I'm skeptical. I believe, yes, 3 of 3. So the 3, the entire 3-issue series of that.
I remember liking that a lot when it came out. I don't still have a copy. Who was the interior artist? Does it say on the cover? Neil
Gaiman, Chris Bachalo, and Mark Buckingham. Right. And I used to have this first issue, and apparently this was the first Vertigo that was published when I was doing my kind of research, because I've really been on this.
First under the label Vertigo. Oh,
correct. Because I've been on this big Vertigo kick lately. So, and literally a day or 2 after that information popped up in my research, it shows up online, just kind of the good fortune of having local groups, I guess.
Yeah, and local Bachalo, I remember really liking the Chris Bachalo artwork back then, and it looks like my memory was right. That looks cool.
Yeah. It's really nice.
Completely different from Dave McKean.
Very different. Yeah, but still pretty amazing. I'm really looking forward to that one, because that cover especially takes me right back to having this in the boxes. And again, as you're well aware, and a lot of people are, I mean, over the years, things disappear, you give it away, you trade it, whatever happens, right? So maybe not all about me. Anything you've been reading this weekend that's jumped out at you, or?
I have not done a lot of reading this weekend. I've been continuing to chug through my X-Men omnibus, which is not
nice
anything new to anybody.
Yeah.
But Chris Claremont was not great guns out of the gate. He just slowly gets better. So it's interesting. It's interesting for me to read. And he does a lot of stuff very clumsily as a writer, actually.
Okay.
I assume it all gets better. It already gets better issue to issue. And then I've been sorting through my black and white magazines. I've been turning my office into a total mess and sorting through lots of stuff.
Yeah.
This weekend. So I put all my Planet of the Apes into Mylar.
Oh wow, yeah.
I just got some very thin Mylar. It makes a very annoying crinkly noise, but it looks nice. So I have every single Planet of the Apes 1 through 29, and I plan to reread those someday. But I don't think I ever got to read them all as a kid. So anyway, there's some cool, but I've just been looking at them. I haven't read them yet. A cool bunch of stories drawn by Mike Ploog in there. I don't know if you were ever a Mike Ploog fan.
The name I'm familiar with. I couldn't conjure up an image from him, but
he's maybe most linked to Werewolf by Night back in the 70s.
Okay, of course. Yeah, all right.
And he was apparently an assistant to Will Eisner, and he has bits of Will Eisner style in his work.
Yeah.
Actually, let me see if I can pull out of here. I don't know if you ever had a Planet of the Apes fascination as a kid. Or
I didn't
maybe
really.
Half a generation ago. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's some Mike Ploog, Planet of the Apes.
I wonder if I can do this what Adam does here. No, not that one. Sorry, Damien. I'm not used to this here.
There's a button that Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it's got a lot of cool art, and there's a lot of Alfredo Alcala artwork in these Planet of the
Okay.
Apes. And I'm a huge fan of his, and I've
Yes.
become more and more obsessed by him. So, whoops, I may do some videos about Planet of the Apes soon.
Mhm.
And then there's just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wine 49er was just saying, just going back to the Black Orchid, that her first appearance was in Adventure Comics, and he can't remember the issue number. And that's the one that jumped out when I was kind of looking online, seeing that Adventure Comics cover with her on it. Sorry, carry on.
And there's just all these weird Marvel magazines that I'm turning up.
Yes.
Bizarre Adventures, which just had different things every time. This one's a character called Paradox. I guess I should try to make myself in color if I'm showing these color covers. Let's see. There's that.
Unless it's all black and white inside. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It is all black and white inside. That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
The covers are color. Bizarre Adventures with Thor.
Nice.
Oh, and the Thor. Do you remember an artist named John Bolton?
Yes. Oh, hell yeah, I do.
He
yeah.
had incredible art. I don't know what happened to him. He was like, it was always this big special deal to me when he would show up in the 80s.
Yes.
So that was cool to see him doing some Thor.
I think there was a couple of single issues. I don't know if they were collections of his short stories or something, or I doubt he did it specifically, but Eclipse had a couple of John Bolton issues.
It always felt like there was a link to a lot of these black and white comics to the what do you call them? The ground level comics that might like Star Reach and stuff. There was some crossover there. There was some similarities. Man God.
Oh, awesome. Look at that.
I think this is actually a adaptation of the science fiction novel Gladiator that supposedly influenced Superman.
Oh, okay.
And this one's called Masters of Terror.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure what's inside.
So are these magazine boxes you haven't looked through for a while, or?
For a long time. And many of them, you know, I don't know. In about the past 6 years where I've discovered comics are much cheaper than I thought they were, I've kind of hoarded a lot with hopes of reading them someday.
Yeah.
So I never have taken a close look at a lot of these because I thought I would eventually read them. Let's see. Oh, and here's an interesting one. Are you familiar with Black Mark by Gil Kane?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So this is a reprint by Marvel, but originally Gil Kane sold and kept his copyright small paperbacks.
Okay.
You know, that look just like paperback science fiction novels about his character Black Mark. And it was before Conan had come out. So I think he timed it wrong. But also to try to make it more friendly to the book reading public, he used this kind of typewriter typeset. And to me, it looks very ugly because of that. I like good lettering. But still, it's an interesting, to me, part of comic book history where a very talented creator was trying to do something outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of when I started, you know, buying fanzines and stuff, it was a bit legendary. So then I was excited when it actually got reprinted by Marvel eventually.
Okay, yeah.
So those are just some examples of what I'm turning up in my own boxes.
That's all great, though.
I'd like to have the time to read.
Yeah.
But what I am reading
right
now,
maybe there'll be a phase 2 where we get locked down again, and then you'll have another 3 months.
Well, I feel like I'm locked down until my daughter goes back to school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was already working at home, and so now it's just her and me. I don't.
Is the whole year done for you guys down there too, like it is for us?
Yes. So she never got to go back to school.
Yeah.
And all of the summer things we'd signed her up for have been canceled. So even though I guess we can start going to cafes or something soon, there won't be a whole lot to do. All the swimming pools have been closed for the whole summer.
Okay. Which
kind of sucks.
Anyway, totally does. Yeah.
The other thing that I have been reading lately is Doc Savage, written by Steve Englehart.
Yes.
he did just, I guess there were just 8 issues of it, and so I'm almost done with that, and then I'll move on to the black and white magazines. So,
and how have they been?
I've been really getting into the spirit of them.
Yeah, hey,
the pulpy spirit, which I guess superheroes rose out of, and when you think about it, you can really see where all this came from. It wasn't all brand new when it hit the comic books.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. Yeah, Doc Savage is kind of like Batman a little bit, really. You know, this really rich guy who has unlimited resources and all these sidekicks. Except he doesn't have any dark edge like Batman does.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just, perfect.
Yeah. He's just a good man through and through.
Yes, and is the superior human being to everybody else.
Yeah.
Just like me.
When you were showing that X-Men, I started off at the top talking about it. Did you watch the Claremont interview that the Kayfabe guys did?
I have started it.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen a lot of Claremont interviews before, but it seemed like a good one. I mean, I was more excited. Over the weekend, I was listening to the Rick Veitch interview.
Yes.
And I thought that was really cool.
Really good, right? Yeah, I loved that one.
I haven't actually finished listening to that one either. They're very long.
Well, that Veitch one especially, I think that one's the one that's almost like 4 hours, isn't it? Or was that the Bissett one that was only? Oh no, maybe it was the Bissett one that was almost 4 hours.
And they make a nice pair,
a really good one,
and the Veitch one together.
Yeah,
it's really cool how Veitch started with Underground Comics, the Two-Fisted Zombie things. Now I want to get a hold of a copy of Two-Fisted Zombies. Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. You can find it. I wouldn't say it's out there in abundance, but I mean, I think it was in one of I bought a few lots many years ago off of eBay of Underground Comic stuff, and I think it came in that. And you could probably find it. All New Underground Comics was kind of the header, and I think there was 5 or 6 issues, and his issue, that Two-Fisted Zombie Tales, was one of those issues. Normally, they were kind of a flip book, so one team had one side, you flip it, the other team had the other side. But that was one of the only issues where it was their story through and through. I could probably pull it out for you to have a peek, because there's a couple of panels, and he talks about it in that interview, where they're very, it's very Kirby influenced, and you can see it in the panels. You can see it in the panels amazingly. I'll show you the one that jumped out at me the most.
I loved the way he talked about Kirby's New Gods era stuff, and that he put it so well, and it confirmed my feeling about that era of Kirby. Yes, I agree with Rick Veitch and that was the peak Kirby moment there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what got me interested. It's like, well, if I'm going to read something like chunky from Kirby, that would be a great one. And later on, I don't know if you've gotten to it yet or what part you're at, but he talks about even when he needs influence at this time, he still goes back to his Kirby comics, and he just looks through those for kind of like inspiration and kind of motivation to some degree, right? So panels like this, to me are very Kirby influenced, right? Like,
the Underground meets Kirby right there.
And then there was another one near the beginning. This one here.
Oh yeah, totally.
Especially with this guy down in the corner there.
Yeah, and the other guy on the other side of the page in the foreground looks very Kirby-ish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's funny though, because that one, just like a lot of Underground Comics, if you look at the cover, you think you're getting into something very EC.
Absolutely. Well, exactly, with the band along the side. Yeah. So if you do look for it, you might want to type in All New Underground Comics, because that might be the one. Okay. That might be the one where you find some copy that nobody knows what they have, right? Yeah. Whereas if you look for Rick Veitch, potentially people know.
Sometimes I feel like a whole segment of Underground Comics were just people who wanted to return to EC Comics that, were so tragically cut off.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like I've talked about in the videos before, like that idea of that just running away as fast as they could from anything that was pardon me, some sort of censorship, and they just wanted to create and do things, that kind of hunger for that is very apparent in some of it, for sure. One of the other interviews that stood out for me, and I know that not a lot of people are fans, yourself included, and when I listened to another interview by him, when I listened to another interview by him, I couldn't get through it because it was horrible. I did really like the kayfabe interview.
Oh, really? So maybe I should try that. I just passed it by because of other interviews I've heard. Oh, you've got Black Kiss.
I found, just book one. I totally agree with you. Like I said, when I listened to the other one, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't listen to it, partially due to the interviewer. I mean, I can see why people aren't fans of his. I can totally see it. But there was something about that interview with the kayfabe guys that just really worked for me, because there was a lot of really good stuff in it. And he was just being honest. He was just, these are my thoughts on things. I'm talking to you guys who are also creators. There felt like more of an honesty. Mm-hmm. There was still a little bit of like, I still have to put on my mask and be the Howard Chaykin bad guy. Right. Definitely there was moments like that, but overall I enjoyed it. So I found this from one of the guys. He had some single issues as well. When I was talking to him online about the single issues.
Single issue, I can't tell.
It's a sort of a trade.
Oh, okay.
Because the single issues were only like 6 or 8 pages each by Vortex.
I didn't.
So what they did was then they put out these books that collects. I think this one collects the first 6 issues, potentially 5 or 6 issues. And when you flip through them, the breaks come like every 8 pages. Because he said to me, he's like, "Did you know that this is right? It doesn't look like there's pages missing." I had no idea. I just assumed that they were full issues, but I guess not. So they did 3 copies or 3 books in this format, which will now be the ones that I look for. So at least I can get a complete story or more of a story.
And they're in black and white, I see. I think I like Chaykin better in black and white than in color.
Yes, and because it is my channel, I will warn everybody. It's some raunchy. Apparently, it's just filled with sex and violence, and very very graphic sex as well too. So definitely something that buyer beware. And I don't know the history about it. Apparently,
is it what we would now say some of it triggering or?
Oh, absolutely. I would say so. Just on a flip through. Again, I haven't read it, but I would say it's extremely, extremely graphic and extremely, it's dirty. It's a dirty book, 100%. I'm curious about the history of it because I know a tiny, tiny bit. It just caused quite an uproar. And I mean, especially it being, I believe Vortex was the Canadian publisher as well, too. I'd love to dig into some of that history to see exactly what happened with it. Or why it was presented in the format that it was. So that was fine. No, go ahead.
I just see a while ago, Gore Vidal asked if Gladiator was a Burroughs story, and it's by someone named Philip Wiley. The where did it go? I put it aside already, but the one with the big muscular guy, the one that was based on an old novel that supposedly inspired Superman. And Gore says something about hearing that Eisner did not respect Kirby as an artist, which seems odd to me because he definitely included Kirby in his book of interviews. I had never heard that they didn't respect each other as artists, or that Eisner didn't. I know that Gil Kane and Howard Chaykin do not like Eisner, but those are the only 2 I've ever heard complain about him. And Gil Kane was a pretty unlikable person from what I gather.
The little bit I've heard, same. Yeah.
But maybe he was unlikable the way Howard Chaykin is unlikable. Maybe he was that feisty type of person.
Yeah, and just the highly opinionated and not very nice about it. You can have negative opinions and present them in a certain way, right? Where he seems to be very blunt. No, fuck that guy kind of attitude,
Yeah.
64-page special says that Chaykin finds Chaykin's art almost incomprehensible in color or black and white. Well, there you go.
Which is sad because 64-page special loves a raunchy comic book, but I guess he won't be able to comprehend Black Kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gore is saying the same thing, that when it came out in '88, it was sold at comic shops in black bags, and that's what I'd heard as well too. So you couldn't even see the covers at all.
In the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of my comic book shops had a little separate section of adult stuff. In fact, the one near me used to have like these saloon doors that you would have to go through to get to the adult section, and that's where you'd find Omaha the Cat Dancer and stuff.
Okay, all right.
That whole thing's gone away, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're all
out. There's less dirty comics, or they're just no one cares anymore, or something.
Yeah, I think it's probably less dirty comics for sure. And I've spoken about it too. When I was younger, I just remember having to ask for the box that they kept behind the counter, because that's where the undergrounds and stuff would be. Right. And they'd pull that out, and I could get my Freak Brothers and Robert Crumb, etc. But that was it. We didn't have a saloon door idea. Sounds pretty good, though. I love that. One of the other things I found today, and I not powered through it, I easily went through one of the issues. It was an ad I saw in one of the previous Vertigo titles I was reading, and again, only found 2 issues. This was from Red River Bookshop.
Never saw that one before. Wow.
No, either had I. When I looked and saw the ad, and then seeing who was involved, like there's Richard Corbin in here, Ed Brubaker does a story in here, et cetera, et cetera. So I read issue number 2. This is the one that has the Corbin piece in it. They're supposed to be all kind of crime related comics, but the Corbin one, Killer Smile, even though it's about gangsters, it really reads like one of his classic kind of short horror stories. You know, these guys who grew up together, and one ends up killing the other and gets haunted by his spirit, kind of thing, and dragged down. Really nice, like really great to see Corbin at any time. And it was a story I was unfamiliar with. I don't think it's been reprinted anywhere else.
It's just shocking to me that there aren't like massive tomes of Corbin reprints out there. They surely would sell, at least to some predictable number of people or something.
Yeah, like at least the 2 of us for sure. Yeah.
And we know other people.
A couple more. Yeah. The one that stood out for me in this one, I do have my glasses here. Look at that. Written by Jamie Delano, illustrated by Randy DeBurke, and colored by Grant Golish. Was one called Big Shot, kind of this crime syndicate and a guy who knocks off the boss so he can become the boss. And then what fate befalls him 20 years later when he's now the old boss, are really good. So, I mean, maybe there's almost like a nice mix of crime and sort of a comeuppance, Twilight Zone-y type of feel to it. So really, really great series. I haven't read number 3 yet, but number 3, that is the one that has the Brubaker story. So I'm really curious. I flipped through it, and it looks like classic Brubaker, a guy sitting at a bar recounting his life, and it just goes from there, right? So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'll just kind of...
I've got to start really, I've got to emulate you more and just look for Vertigo labels and then just grab them and see what's inside them.
Yeah, well, and reading these Vertigo, like I was saying, when I come across these ads, I just snap a picture of them and put them in my phone just so I have it. So there's the look at the Brubaker written one, who illustrated by Eric Shanower, S-H-A-N.
Oh, okay. I know who he is.
O-W-E-R. And then colored by Alex Morrissey.
Eric Shanower went on to do a Wizard of Oz comics.
Oh, okay. All right.
Kind of an ironic move. But he was also known for a series of comics about the Bronze Age, like a historical comics.
Oh, yes. I know exactly the one. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of interesting bits that people have done, and then it's just forgotten by the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That end up deep in the bins underneath other boxes. So this will be the next one on the slate for sure. Really curious to see some more Brubaker. So this is August 1998 is this series, or 1998 is this series, and I believe it was only the 3 issues. But yeah, so that was a nice little score for sure. You can't go wrong. Like Red River Bookshop, I don't know why I don't go there.
It looks like there's a total of 4 issues. How many did you get?
Okay.
You got 3?
I got 2 of them.
2 of them.
Number 2 and number 3.
But they're all, it's anthology, so you don't have to get
Correct.
them in order.
Yeah. And then to tease Gore Vidal even more, another one that jumped out while I was just looking through the bins, not one that I knew about, Pride and Joy, Garth Ennis and John Higgins, a 4-issue miniseries, Vertigo miniseries. Again, no context for me whatsoever. Don't know anything about it, but he had the whole run for dirt cheap, so why not give that a shot?
Are those?
The
Some
covers
of them look like
great.
photo collages or something, but that one.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. I'll crack one open here. Yeah, it's incredible what's out there when you search those bins, when you're crawling on your hands and knees, pulling long boxes out from underneath racks. So yeah.
Well, and if you think of the second half of the 90s, they were just kind of desperate to find something to sell, right? And I guess Vertigo was doing better than a lot of other comics, so they probably were just trying a lot under the Vertigo label to see what would stick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also nice that there's so many kind of mini series, so I don't feel like I have to jump in and now I'm hooked on a
50 issues.
That went 40 issues. Yeah. And this one was 1997. So yeah. Yeah, pretty sweet. What else you got?
I'm looking through the chaos here. Here's the Doc Savages that are next on my list to be read, the black and white Doc Savages.
Yes, those are the ones that I see every once in a while when I go to the comic shows.
Yeah,
the
they're not
one.
Too hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone cares about Doc Savage.
I can't say I've ever picked one up or tried it out, so I don't really know. But I do love the covers; they're so great.
They're such straightforward pulp adventures. You've got to be in a certain mood for it, I guess. But I am in that mood right now. Yeah. And they probably don't live up to the covers. The covers look much more sort of like garish adventure than the interiors do. Yeah. Like the covers always have him with his shirt ripped and fighting some bizarre monster. Yeah. I have stuff all over the place, but
yes, you do. But that's good.
I'm sure you've experienced trying to put things in order and it getting far worse than it was before.
I usually save those for a night where, like once a year, where my wife goes out, and then I take over the kitchen table upstairs with the dining room table, and it's spread all over the place just to try to get some order going on.
Because of all the shut-in stuff, I've been doing a lot of crazy ordering of things.
Yep.
So I got over 25 issues of Millie the Model.
Oh, nice.
And my daughter and I are reading those together.
Right on. How is she liking them?
She loves them. Even though, I mean, the bizarre thing is every issue has like 4 or 5 jokes where a man is just so taken by the hot body of Millie that he does something stupid and gets beaten up by his wife.
Yeah.
So those are jokes that make sense to middle-aged Stan Lee, who was writing these, but not to an 11-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And she's very interested in fashion right now. So I mean, in the idea of designing clothes and stuff. So it's fun that way. But they were, sure. I'm surprised. I mean, if they seem to have all been written by Stan Lee. He was very good at these short, 1 to 4 page gag stories, just like they do in Archie. In fact, I find a lot of them a lot better than your average Archie. So that's kind of a shock to me.
Yeah.
And her nemesis, Chili, got her own magazine. So we got some Chilies. So anyway, this is I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of you with with what's going on here.
Well, I mean, the thing that impresses me the most, and I think I've said it to you in some of the comments of your videos, it's great that your daughter seems to be still into it. So you're still reading together, which is really awesome.
And she'll read some comics by herself, but maybe the downside is I've made this, in her mind, it's a thing that she does with her dad. So when I'm not around, she'll read like graphic novels that are adaptations of some fantasy novels she likes, but she'll wait to read these chilies till I'm there.
I see.
And eventually it'd be kind of nice if, I didn't have to read them all. But I actually read out loud. Humor magazines are a lot of fun to read out loud.
Yeah. I think I'm remembering it was the same with Jaden, though. There were some things that we were reading together. And there was a couple of things that maybe he was getting
Avengers
more out
together. Was that?
We were reading a ton of different things, and then just kind of digging into the bins. That did taper off. And I mean, now, especially now at this time, I mean, he's powering through all sorts of stuff on his own, and he's not even worried about if I'm with them or not.
Right.
He's reading, like, he's a voracious reader in general, like books and comics and everything. So which is great. I love that. But he's right out there. So it might be like a transition thing, because there was a time where all of a sudden I'm lying in bed with him a few years ago now and going, like, is this, are you maybe too old for me lying in bed reading a comic? And he kind of looks at me kind of like with almost a look of relief, like, yeah, it might be. I'm like, okay, fair enough. All right. Because I would do it till you're like 20. It's fine, But yeah.
Well, and again, because I'm her only friend most days.
Yeah.
So we're locked in together. And so there's kind of a reversion to that even more.
Yeah. Gore, I did see some comments. I did see your comment in that video. I've just been neglecting answering them, but I did see the comments about the Hellblazer issues that are related to that Heartland. So I appreciate it. I'm definitely going to dig into them because that Heartland, I loved it. Something else I grabbed today. There was a few more things that I grabbed today. One that I didn't know existed, and I'm a huge, huge Ted McKeever fan. I wasn't aware that he did a book that was written by Lydia Lunch from, I believe, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks fame and the infamous Lydia Lunch. So I believe it's just a one-issue Toxic Gumbo. I'm not the biggest fan of hers, I would say, but I absolutely adore Ted McKeever, sorry.
Ted McKeever,
yeah.
Yeah, the last I've seen of him was when he wrote that comic book where he was complaining about the comic book industry. I guess that was the
Pencil Head.
Right, Pencil Head. Yeah, so I don't know if he's ever going to come back after that.
No, it sure doesn't seem like it, does it?
And that contained that story about Gil Kane stealing artwork out of the Marvel vaults.
That's right.
And then I heard at a convention someone... the guy who does the IDW artist editions, the editor of those, repeated that story. He did not say it was Gil Kane, but I already, the way he said it, I knew it was.
Well, and in the Chaikin interview that he did with the kayfabe guys, he flat out says it as well too. So like, there's that story, and he's like, no, I was there. It's true. He did it. Wow. Like just full stop, unapologetic, very straight, and then just continued with his story, but. Just kind of like, no, it was true. End of story.
Well, then
no discussion. You know what I mean?
Confirms it, yeah.
Yeah. And then another surprise, another one that I didn't know existed is another Tim Truman called Dog Moon. Tim Truman and Robert Hunter. Again,
the lyricist from the Grateful Dead.
Oh, hey, well, there you go. Look at that. 2 music-related ones back to back, and I didn't even plan it.
I haven't heard you talk much about the Dead in any of your videos.
No, I'm absolutely not a fan. I don't know much about them. I may very well be a fan secretly and just don't know it. I just don't know.
Maybe you'll like Robert Hunter's writing. I don't know. He was a poet, I guess. I think I might have that somewhere in my boxes because I do grab, when I'm hunting in boxes, I do grab Timothy Truman whenever I see it.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
Yeah, and that was the thing for me too. Yeah. Seeing his name on it, it was a no-brainer. Just pull it out of there. So that'll be interesting. And then these were some of these things were the things I traded in a bunch of books with Greg at the flea market, one of our local kind of comic legends. And I went to pay him, and he kind of waved me off. He's like, whatever you've brought into trade, I'm sure we'll work it out at a later date. I don't want cash to sully our relationship. So I'm like, Greg, you're a damn good man. But one of the other things he had was Preacher Volume 1, the graphic novel. So LaRasa and I have been talking about this for the past couple of weeks on Adam's channel. So I figured now is the time. If I'm going to dive in, let's go for it.
That's another big hole in my reading. But it's intimidating because it's a pretty long series, right?
Yeah. This one collects the first 7 issues, I think it said. And he had like volume 2 and 3 as well. So I figured give this one a shot first. If I love it, I'll kind of keep going on with it. So, but again, it's one of those, as I'm sure you have, I've just heard nothing but good things. So I'm looking forward to trying it out.
Do you feel now, like when I started on YouTube, I was still thinking the way I thought most of my comic book reading career, which was it's okay just to read a few issues of something. But I've been infected by this idea that I need the whole run of things. I mean, I like to collect whole runs of things I love. But now if I think about reading Preacher, I feel like I have to commit to reading every Preacher issue. But really, I should just say, oh, I'll read the first trade and leave it at that or something. I'm inspired otherwise.
I mean, in my head and out loud right now, Damien, I do say I'm going to try the first volume, but I'm exactly the same way, which is why I love miniseries so much, because then I can get into it and not feel that obligation to like, well, shit, I've got to at least give it a shot. But I think now more than ever, I'm really at a point where, because I really want to kind of control the size of my collection, my thoughts have really started changing on those to a drastic degree, where it is like, if I don't like it, I absolutely will stop. I'm not going to just go into it. Right. I'm going to really give it a shot. And, 7 issues, if it doesn't hit me in 7 issues, I honestly don't know if it ever will. Right. So
I was hearing someone, it might have even been Adam, or it could have easily been someone else saying, I'm collecting these books, but I'm not going to start reading them till I have all 50 issues or all 100 issues.
Yep.
And my first thought was, that's stupid. And my second thought was, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like this disease.
Yeah.
Back when you didn't think you could ever get all the issues, you didn't care, and you just read, what came your way.
That's right.
Well,
I think that's a big part
attainable.
Of it. Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it. You can find this stuff, right? Because I am like that as well, too. If I get the middle of a run, like with the Daredevil stuff, it took me a while to kind of start reading anything else other than kind of what I'd already read, because I wanted to experience it from number 1. And then after a while, I'm like, that's just stupid. I've got a box and a half of Daredevil here. Like, let's just start reading random issues, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I sort of broke that. But I do get that feeling sometimes, too, where I do want to read how a character grows, because that idea appeals to me, how it grows from issue number 1 to issue number 20 or 30 or 40, what the writers do with it as they get more control over the character and figure it out a bit. That stuff is appealing, right? That idea of an arc. Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing with my X-Men read. I'm wanting to read Chris Claremont's work in order, just to see that progression. Yeah. Anyway, we're all like amateur historians at this point anyway.
Absolutely.
Especially you with all of your undergrounds and Vertigo and everything. You're like mining the cultural mines and seeing what comes up, which is very cool.
It's super fun. And that's the thing. I mean, I think especially with the YouTube thing, I know we chatted about it in the comments. After that 8 years of being on, things really do shift. There is, part of the interest for some of this is kind of creating the videos that maybe aren't out there already and talking about these books that weren't talked about, and just what you get exposed to and finding all these nooks and crannies is just so much fun with all the input from everybody else that does videos with this little nuggets of information, like a Russ Works, for example. I mean, what the heck would I do without a Russ Works to give me a couple of paragraphs of history on something? It's fantastic. I absolutely love that stuff. So it's great, because I've been thinking lately, once now you've done yours, just about like the 8 years that I have been on, it's coming up to it, just how things have changed over that time and how my reading has changed and just how even the collecting side of it has changed. And yeah, it's great to kind of have that arc, for ourselves as well as these hardcore nerds, so.
Well, and you, like me, have kind of stuck it out through thick and thin.
Yeah.
It's cool to see a few people coming back, like Adam, and La Raza didn't really go away, but
Yeah.
Sort of went away because of the baby. But yeah, I'm not quite sure why we stuck with it, but it has developed in interesting ways.
Well, I think, honestly, Damien, I think it's because, for the most part, I think we both stayed out of the kind of bullshit that surrounded a lot of the other channels, right? Like, I know myself, I've dipped my toes into it, and I know you have as well, too. But I think for the most part, there's a few of us who have just done videos because we like doing videos. It wasn't necessarily about, like, all this other stuff, like getting the views and all the drama and stuff, where I just like doing videos. I've grown to love it, even though I was nervous as hell the first time doing it. Wasn't quite sure, but at this point, I thoroughly enjoy it, and I would never do anything if I didn't enjoy it. So
yeah, no, I just do it when I enjoy it too. It just seems like I keep enjoying it, so I keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's sometimes disconcerting when all these people we used to know are gone.
Yeah.
And I do get nostalgic about that for some reason.
Yeah, it's the same.
I think there's been a lot of comments about Preacher.
There has, and Hitman as well, too.
And I don't previously know Weiner 94, but he seems to have... Sorry, Weiner 49er, sorry. He seems to have a lot of knowledge, so that's cool. I don't know if he has a channel.
I think I've looked. He's popped up a number of times in some live streams with me here.
Cool.
Just in the comments and stuff. I have that said, though, I haven't seen him for a little while, I don't believe. So, and yes, I do love violence, Wine 49er, so I'm sure I'm gonna love it. The Boys is another one that I haven't read either. And again, it's like you were saying, it's the same with me. There's just huge gaps in my reading of stuff that's kind of classics.
Doesn't Ennis also have a comic book about a prostitute, a whore who has superpowers? I feel like I heard someone talking about that once. I meant to track that down.
Was that the Pro? Was that one?
Maybe that was it. The Pro. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember if that was Ennis or not. I do know the book you were talking about.
Maybe it wasn't Ennis. I thought it was.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been. What else you got there in that stack? Oh, he's saying he doesn't do videos, but he follows us. And Gore too. Yes, and the Pro. Yeah, that's got to be the Wine 49er. It's a well-known fact that Ennis hates superheroes.
Yes, well, I've heard that. Yeah. So he's just made anti-superhero things like the Pro and the Boys.
Yeah.
Have you come across these Nemo things that are reprints of old comic strips? I've been wanting to find more. I haven't actually read this one yet, though. But because I'm one of those people, when I was a kid, I used to clip out my favorite comic strips and try to save them, but I always failed in actually saving them in the long term. I don't know what happened to them.
Like, did you put them in binders or those old photo albums with the plastic
I think I just put them in a shoebox.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. Because I think I had a period where I was using those old photo albums that had that plastic sheet.
That's smart. I might have tried that once at one point. One of the things is in my childhood, we moved about every 2 years, so I usually lost a lot of stuff. And then this had me kind of excited when I found it. Hot Stuff. This seems like something you've probably come across.
Yeah, I've got a few issues. Some Corbin pops up in those too.
Yeah, so he does have a story in here, but it's just 3 pages. Mm-hmm. Well, it was kind of set in. It's kind of just a sexy goof on Roman times, voluptuous.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of Gray Morrow. And I didn't realize Gray Morrow had kind of done these saucy ground level comics, I guess. They weren't quite underground, but again, kind of like the, what do you call them? The Star Reach things where you could draw topless women now. Ooh, aren't we so grown up we can draw topless women?
Yeah.
But then there's more kind of amateur stuff. I don't know. These magazines are odd.
Yeah,
I guess
they are.
Hot Stuff was, and there's this really kind of in bad taste. This is by Neil Adams, and it's a naked slave girl, and it says, "This is the emperor's food taster's favorite job." And if you look close enough, you realize the slave girl has her legs spread, and so before the emperor does oral sex, the food taster is going to come do oral sex. Seems like a rejected cartoon for Playboy or something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm wondering, does it say in the front who was the publisher of it? I'm wondering if that was another one of those weirdo Canadian companies out of Toronto or something for that one.
Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, yeah, no, then definitely.
Sal Cortesio, like just an individual person's name. And when I first started buying fanzines as a kid in the early to mid 70s, there was a lot of slightly naughty stuff that you could order through the fanzines that I was afraid to order because my parents would kill me. Like Bedtime Stories by Bernie Wrightson. And they would also sell a lot of portfolios by these more popular artists like Wrightson and Barry Smith and stuff. That I think also would have topless women in them.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's funny that there was this little secondary market, you know, for the adult fans of comic books who wanted to buy something a little naughty, but not like
Yeah, no, that's great. Is that the only issue that you'd found of that one, or did you?
That's the only issue I found. I feel like I've seen it somewhere before.
Yeah,
I may have seen it at comic books. There was a comic book store in New York City that I would visit when I was a kid, and it might have had them there. And then there's this, I'm finding random fanzines that I've collected. This is called Black Light, and that's a Gene Day. Are you familiar with Gene Day? He's Canadian.
Yes.
But not that that's important, but
it's
I'm
important.
kind of a bit Gene Day obsessed. I thought there was more Gene Day in here. Yeah, here's another. So this must be Gene Day fan work before he started working for the professional.
Excellent. Company. What year is that from?
Let's see. I don't see a date.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about
fanzine. There's no indicia or anything.
Yeah.
No dates.
I'm dreaming of the day that I come across
70 or 76 is a 76 maybe.
Okay. I'm dreaming of a day that I come across a box of old fanzines somewhere out in the most random spot. That would be fantastic. That whole world really appeals to me. I think you've said the same thing in your videos too, that I would love to see some more of that stuff. The little bit that I have, I absolutely love. And it's a lot of it for kind of like that writing, but also just the, reader submitted art and articles.
Right. And I love that for some reason. And I got quite a few of them as a kid and don't even remember the titles of them.
Yeah.
And so I can't, like when I search eBay, I just find, maybe I found this, but the ones I got were usually on Ditto or Mimeo.
Okay. Yeah.
And there was one I remember, it was on Ditto, which I think you have to kind of write on with a special pencil, and you can only make about 40 copies before the original wears out. And it had this meticulous Tarzan-like comic drawn by Brent Anderson, who later became a professional artist. He's the one who does Astro City.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then I met him at a convention once and mentioned it to him, and he was very embarrassed to have been in it, which I thought, anyway.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe I caught him at a bad moment. That happened.
Yeah.
And then I'd forgotten I'd collected all these DC, what's it called? Amazing World of DC. It was DC's version of Foom.
Oh,
I think it might have come out before Foom. But it has some weird artwork on it. That's a Wally Wood drawing on the back cover. Nothing to do with DC. And it would take, I don't know where the good stuff is. And I've accidentally bought multiple copies, apparently. So if any of my friends is super into DC fandom. Anyway,
Those are great.
and then this is also the kind of, is it a fanzine or is it a professional thing? It's called Astral Comics.
Oh boy.
Astral Comics. But there's a Walt Simonson back cover.
Yeah.
And the front cover is by Mike Grell, but then the interiors are by, I think, people who are kind of wannabe superhero comic book artists.
Uh-huh.
But none of the names do I recognize. Let's see. Tom Sciacca is the writer and artist. Oh, but Ted Blaisdell, Rich Buckler, and Tom Sciacca were the inkers. So somehow there's some kind of professional connection. And then there's this kind of fanzine magazine that Rich Buckler did.
Mm-hmm.
I've shown this one before, I know.
That one looks great.
And I think maybe similar is this thing, Space Fantasies.
Okay. Do you know, sorry, Damien, just do you know which button it is on the bottom here?
Which button what?
To kind of make you full screen. Sorry, I'll finish the rest of the sentences in my head. I don't remember which one it is. I'm just going to click some.
Okay, yeah, I can't see the buttons on my version here. It's somewhere further over.
I'll click all of them and we'll see what happens, because I'd like to see some of those a little bigger. No. How about that one?
Huh.
No.
Maybe they're just not letting you do it.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why it wouldn't. Because I know Adam does it. Anyway, sorry about that. Because I'd like to see this a little bigger.
I've done it on mine.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, there's just, I'm not sure what we're looking at here. Kind of photo collage stuff. Maybe. And a lot of these, they publish 1 or 2 issues and they tell you to subscribe, but I don't think it. Yeah. So this is kind of like a superhero comic, but with breasts exposed.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. There's some genitals even. I hope I'm not ruining your channel and the sanctity of your channel.
No.
But then it seems like they're trying to be like Kirby or something. Vicon of the Skywriters.
That's insane. Love it.
Yeah. So I wish I could flip through and look at the same time, but so I don't really know what I'm going to find here.
Yeah.
And here's another one called Graphic Story World. I don't remember anything about that.
Yeah.
It's advertising Phantasmagoria on the other side. Wasn't that like a horror movie?
Phantasm was the horror movie. Phantasmagoria is the Kenneth. I'm blanking on his last name. I've got some of them.
I got a Kirby a spread in the middle.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't really, the magazine of graphics, this may just be articles about, yeah. So it was trying to be like Comics Journal or something maybe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, here they're showing something from Guy Cowell's Inner City Romance Comics.
Oh, beautiful. Honestly, I've said it before, and seriously, out of any of the underground comics, anybody's watching doesn't know underground comics very well or wants a place to start. Honestly, Guy Cowell's Inner City Romance.
Oh, really?
An absolutely phenomenal series. It is so good. Every single issue has something. There's a few that are better than others, but it is a fantastic one.
And I used to have tons of comics journals, but now I just seem to have this one with this really cool Charles Burns cover.
Amazing.
So I guess I have to rebuy a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think I was reading that a lot in the 90s. What year? Oh, it's not important. 1992 is what the year this is from.
Mm-hmm. That would be a good article, too. I don't have that issue.
You know what kills me? In the 80s, I had every issue of Raw.
Oh, come on.
And now when I see them, they're like $100 a piece or sometimes even more.
They're so expensive. Yes.
Yeah.
when I was in Toronto at the Beguiling, they had some, like, they've got some stuff above the doors on the walls, and they had issues of Raw, and same thing, the prices were just out of this world. But I was so tempted to ask them to pull one down, just to look through it, but I didn't even bother. I imagine that's not something they would just do on a regular basis. But yeah, those would be incredible to have a flip through.
I was so stupid in my early 20s when I bought these. There was one issue that came with gum, like trading cards with gum. I tried chewing the gum. It was totally stale. It was probably gum that had just never been used from the factory for 10 years or something.
That's hilarious.
But I guess if I'd saved the gum and saved the Raw issues of Raw, I would have some nice collector's items on my hands.
Oh, dude, yeah, you absolutely would.
And why aren't those reprinted? Maybe because the copyrights are to each different artist, and they've all, like Charles Burns. That's where I discovered Charles Burns, which is what made me think of it when I was looking at this cover.
That must be the case, hey? Just due to everybody involved in them, trying to get in touch with people, and potentially some people that are no longer with us, right? That you just can't. And
everyone's little pieces are now part of their own graphic novels or their books or whatever. I mean, that was where they published Mouse at first as a mini comic inside the big. It was a very, very creative comic book.
Yeah,
it hasn't been much.
I've only seen like photos and videos. I've never. I wish I could say I've actually flipped through one in real life.
It was like treasury sized edition, and then it would have the mini comics inside and other gimmicks like the trading cards and.
Or one that had a piece of the cover ripped off or something and taped into another book and that sort of thing, right? Yeah. Wine 49er. No, I haven't found many new Eclipse titles lately. It's been pretty dry, to say the least. I think I've hit all the spots in town and bought up everything that they've had. And Gore, if Texas is going to move next to Manitoba, I hope you guys get ready for you got to put some money into your snow removal because you're about to see something in the middle of winter that you've probably never experienced down in Texas.
Maybe you can just move a few select people that Gore chooses to move rather than all of Texas.
That's probably a good idea.
Although, as an American, I would be happy if Texas moved to Canada.
Wait a sec. We got to talk about this some more, Gore. I think maybe there's something more to experience here. And I'm glad you got into Inner City Romance and a Doll as well, Gore. Doll is a really good one as well, but Inner City is just phenomenal.
Is Doll by the same creator?
Correct. Yeah, it was much later, and it was the kind of adventures of this sex doll. And gets passed around between these people. It's not as dirty as it sounds. It's a hell of a story, actually. Just these guys dealing with, lust and versus love, etc. And a hell of a story. A hell of a story.
Well, it looks like I'm looking at mycomicshop.com. They have copies of Inner City Romance, some of the issues for in the $8 to $10 range.
Okay, yeah. There is a collection. It's not handy. It's just out of reach. But there is a soft cover collection too, which might be worth finding. This was back in the day. Yeah, I don't remember how much it was. I remember it being very reasonable, though, the price for that. And then you get everything. I have all the single issues too, but it's nice to have it all collected in one book so I can kind of leave the issues as they are.
Right. Do you recall when you first encountered Underground Comics?
Oh, geez. Honestly, it must have been. I imagine it would have been Freak Brothers, to be honest. Freak Brothers and Crumb, and it probably would have been like those Crumb collections that Fantagraphics was putting out.
Oh, okay.
And Freak Brothers, my earliest Freak Brothers, I think, are ones that I got when we went to visit relatives in the UK. So when I was, I want to say 13, 14-ish, you know what I mean? Sometime around then. And then just discovered the shops here in town, like I said, who all of a sudden I would say, hey, do you have any Freak Brothers? Yeah, I would ask for Freak Brothers because that was the one that I knew. And then they would pull the box from out behind the counter and they would say, we have to leave them back here. And that's when I knew it's like, okay, so from now on, I'm just going to ask if they got a box behind the counter because I don't want to lead them down to Freak Brothers. I want to see what they got behind the counter, right? So but those definitely would have been the early ones. And then it just jumped off from there, seeing the few. But I mean, the collection of Undergrounds has grown substantially in 8 years because, you know, I'm an adult now. I have more disposable income, that sort of thing. I can order stuff and get collections, right? So
it seemed for about a year that was mostly what you were buying. Or I don't even know how long it was, but for quite a while you were, that was your pursuit.
It just seemed like there was so many lots available on eBay that nobody was tapping into. Like there was these buy it now, you'd get like 30 or 40 books. You know, there was some that they would say were water damaged. So I ended up paying with shipping included probably around $1 or so a piece, and they'd get shipped to me. So, I mean, it just seemed like there was, because now when I go and look on eBay, because I still look every once in a while, the prices have gone up so much on Underground Comics, and even the small lots of 8 or 10 books, people want generally around $6 to $8 a book, which I'm not saying is totally unreasonable. It's unreasonable for me because I have the experience of being able to find them cheaper, right? So I'm always holding out, but I feel like there was a little bit of I was just early on that kind of curve of everybody rediscovering some of this stuff, right? So or maybe realizing, or they just didn't know what to do with them, because even one of the local shops here, they had a short box of Undergrounds, and I asked them, because I've been going in for so long, why didn't you ever have these out? And she said, honestly, we just didn't know what to price them at until kind of that Fogel price guide came out. At least it gave them a general idea of what kind of things they had. Turns out they had all books that were like $2, $3, nothing extravagant, but they just didn't know what to do with them or how to price them or how to sell them in their shop, you know. And I think that's probably the way it is with a lot of people. It just was frowned upon that they just kept them in the back or kept them behind the counters, right? So
yeah, I usually see them in kind of the $10 area around here. So I usually pass unless I see something cheaper. Ryan says there's a new anthology called Scratches that's kind of like Raw 2.0. So I'll have to look for that. Ryan is deep into the art comics, so he would know.
Yeah, and G. Schwartz is a name that I know.
Right, he was in the original Raw. He drew in that kind of Tintin-like style.
Oh, yeah.
But in these weird art comic ways at the same time. Yeah, when I first encountered them, it felt like, because I was about 20, and it felt like Freak Brothers and Zippy, and maybe there was one other, but those two in particular, which Gore mentions are the first he encountered, they were kind of like the underground mainstream. They were the easy to digest, and you would find the Freak Brothers had been, you know, each issue had been reprinted 10 times or something. They were just like books, and they would just keep sending them out to the head shops and stuff. Yeah, and the same with Zap too. There was endless editions of Zap, it seemed like.
That's right.
Those were the ones I found first too, was Zap and the Fury Freak Brothers.
Yeah. There's a Freak Brothers cartoon with Woody Harrelson doing one of the voices.
Oh, that makes sense.
John Goodman doing a voice, and then someone who I was unfamiliar with. I can't even remember the name, but there's been a little clip that's been out already, just kind of like a teaser.
So it's about to come out.
It's about to come out, yeah. So I'm not sure what the date exactly is, but there's been a little teaser that's come out. I don't know. I think it's about time. We'll see how it is in reality. I don't know how. It depends on how far they want to push it, right? I can't imagine they want to push it too far if they have like John Goodman and Woody Harrelson, but maybe there's hope for it a little bit. I think it'll just be fun to see them animated, you know, have a little cartoon, however long it's going to be. So,
yeah, I don't know how comfortable our culture is with drug jokes right now.
Yeah. The little teaser I had, they meet Trump, and they get high with him in the Oval Office because he's got a stash of original recipe Kentucky Fried Chicken. He pulls back a curtain, and he's got the Colonel, who's been his corpse has been reanimated so he can cook him chicken all day. So I mean, that gives you a little bit of a taste of. Yeah, I think it'll be just more silly than anything else, as opposed to, like, you know, biting political satire, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Gore says there's a new market for Golden Age comics among young collectors. I did not know that.
Surprising. No, me neither. That really surprises me.
I had noticed a rise in interest in 90s, early 90s comics. Like suddenly everyone's interested in Spawn again, which I thought was dead forever. I mean, I know they were still publishing it, but I thought it would be in the 50-cent boxes forever.
Yeah.
But
everything comes back.
Everything comes back.
You can't. There's nothing you can do. Even the stuff that. Why the hell would that come back?
Well, everything is part of someone's childhood. If you think about it, the people in their 90s are now in their early middle. The kids from the 90s are in their early middle age now and are starting to spend some money.
Yeah. Well, when I was getting into some of these kind of modern underground-ish artists, I mean, even the Ed Piscors of the world and the guy that calls him Bald Eagle, he calls himself Bald Eagles. All of those guys, and even the all-time comics guys, the Bayers of the world, they love and they praise a lot of that 90s image stuff. They absolutely love that stuff. All the pouches and the no feet, and it just that passes me by. I just cannot deal with it.
Yeah, this guy loves the 90s. I didn't realize at first. I thought it was just 80s comics, but I guess he loves the 90s comics too.
Yeah.
I mean, the part I love about him is more a Ditko feeling from him, like an underground Ditko. But so I didn't really catch the 90s until he started doing Bloodstrike and other things like that and talking about his love for the 90s. Yeah, so
what do you think of that book? Which volume is that you have there?
This is round 5. I haven't read it yet. So I read rounds 1 through 3, collected the others, and then started reading the new Image comic by him. And I don't know whether I may be getting bored of this group of characters.
Yep.
Maybe he needs to move on and do a different group of characters or a different storyline. But it's still very cool art, and I guess I'm mostly there for the art.
Yeah.
It's kind of inspirational.
It was you that had sent me some of the single issues, right, Damien? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, first at Floating World, the place with all the alternative comics, I found some compendiums he had published himself. Like he would publish 3 or 4 issues together. And so those are the first things I found. And then I started getting the single issues after that. But then when they started publishing these trades, and they're just so nice, made out of this nice paper with these nice flaps, I couldn't resist that. So I started collecting those.
I've just picked up the first book in that format quite a while, like last summer. I haven't gone and got the rest of them. The thing that stood out for me, I think, is what you were touching on too. The art is it's amazing to me. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't tell you the first thing about that first book story-wise. Yes. I know that they were a team. I know there was a scene where they were in back of some sort of van and there was a fight, but I can't tell you much other than that. But the art is seared into my memory. It's really, really beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and some of the characters are from other dimensions, and some dimensions get destroyed, but it all just sort of seems to happen almost in the background. And so if you're not reading carefully, you kind of miss all these details, it seems.
Ryan's saying he spent hours talking to guys like Bayer and Simmons about early Image.
So I wonder if Ryan likes early Image, or he just puts up with it so he can talk with those people.
Yeah. Regarding the Golden Age collectors, one of the same collectors who buys ECN-related titles thought Saga was pornographic in a live stream. I wanted to challenge him, given his violent taste. That is odd, for sure.
Well, I mean, certainly Saga would have gotten caught up in those laws that destroy, because Tom Veitch was talking about that, those obscenity laws that were passed. And I remember people talking about them they might have still been talking about them in the early 80s, actually. But and they part of that law, if I remember correctly, is that the persons at the shop could go to jail. So, Brian K. Vaughan could draw an orgy and nothing bad would ever happen to him, but not that Brian K. Vaughan does the drawing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
The local comic shop owner would actually go physically to jail for selling, this depiction of sex. That pretty much made the people selling the comics say, whoa, wait a minute, we're just not going to touch any of this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as you already said, I mean, same thing with the undergrounds and the head shops, the exact same thing. We're going to charge you with pornography, with just distributing pornography. And
Right.
well, then we just won't carry the shit anymore. That's it. We don't want it in the store. We're done. Ryan's saying he has a weird obsession with Moore's Image stuff. I'm not familiar with all of the stuff Moore did for Image. I know, 1963 being the one that kind of, it seems like from the interviews, made everybody involved a boatload of money so they could, kind of fund other projects. I think Bissett was talking about that in his interview.
Yeah, and I've seen previous interviews where they said, people thought Swamp Thing was a good selling comic, but it was nothing compared to what they sold when they were with Image, just because people were buying every Image comic in such large amounts.
Yeah.
I was just seeing. The weird obsession with Moore's Image stuff. There's Moore's weird run on Supreme, and I forget who originated Supreme, if that's Liefeld or someone else, but he's basically a Superman knockoff. And Moore did some real cool, postmodern stuff with that, because the character was also a comic book artist, I think. I need to reread that stuff. And I think he did other little bits of Image things that kind of went by when no one was talking about Image anymore, maybe.
Did his own imprint spring out of Image too? I can't remember what it's called. Was it American Comics?
America's Best Comics.
America's Best.
No, that's well, in a
Image?
sense, it was Wildstorm.
Oh, okay.
It was Wildstorm was part of Image, then broke off from Image. It was Jim Lee's imprint, and I assume Jim Lee didn't like having to have his business mixed up with these other yahoos, because he's more of a hard-edged businessman. Ryan says that Supreme is amazing, and Moore wrote Wildcats for a couple of years too. Well, I have to hunt that down. I do love 1963, which I think was never completed because Moore got into a fight with the artists or something. I feel like I vaguely read that somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
So that label ABC, I think there was actually an America's Best Comics in the Golden Age, and I don't know if Moore took that on purpose. The other weird thing, though, is Moore is British. Why was his line of comics called America's Best Comics?
Yeah.
I'm still wondering what he was thinking there. Is he just making fun of things, or
more than likely? Yeah, it seems to be.
But
and Ryan, I mean, Veitch and Irons for sure would have gotten people busted. I could see that absolutely. I could see a lot of those guys getting people busted. The Spain Rodriguez is maybe not the Spain so much as there's a lot of nasty stuff there.
Was it Irons or someone else who switched over to doing sort of historical comics, like about the Alamo and other stuff?
Yeah, Jack Jackson.
That's
who I love. Yeah, I absolutely love Jackson. And it's one of the things that I was surprised didn't come up in the Tim Truman interview on the Kayfabe channel, because they were talking about Truman and how he tackles kind of real life history, and especially to do with indigenous peoples. And I was just surprised, and it made me wonder. I don't know the history, if they have any history, but it makes me wonder if there is some history there between Jackson and Truman or something, because I mean, Jackson would have been doing it even maybe a bit earlier than Truman, where he was tackling some really historic stuff. Yes, there was still a little bit of a fantastical element to some of the stories, but like Comanche Moon, that collection, it was 3 comics. That was a pretty historically accurate depiction there of a certain time. Lost Girls is one that I would love to read from Alan Moore. I would love to read that one.
I bought the hardback of that, but I haven't read it yet. But I read large parts of it in Taboo magazine, because I was getting that whenever that was coming out. And then I gave away almost all my copies of Taboo to this babysitter of my daughters.
Yeah.
I think I sent you a copy though.
Of Taboo. That's very possible. Yes, it's been years. Sorry that I don't remember exactly, but yeah.
But Taboo was amazing. I think that was Stephen Bissett running that, or I don't know if Veitch was involved, but that's where they first started all kinds of things. And there was a lot of Charles Burns in it. And there was the Moore's Jack the Ripper story. I'm forgetting the title of it.
From Hell.
From Hell. And then there was Lost Girls in there, was like a color insert into it.
There was even a Mobius and Jodorowsky story.
Oh, yeah, the Black Cat one, the silent one.
Yeah, Bissett talks about that book. It's interesting what he says about it in his interview, just the way he approached the artists and just tells them, I want you to write something that scares the shit out of you, not something that you think will be scary to someone else. Like, tackle a topic or a subject that you find terrifying and give us that story kind of thing, that, which I think is a kind of unique way to look at it, as opposed to trying to think of scaring an audience. What's going to make you uncomfortable to create and potentially write about? That's an interesting approach to it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to recollect those someday, because that was a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And there just aren't books like that anymore. But I guess it's tricky to do horror now in the more politicized kind of things. I mean, I think even Lost Girls is a kind of a problematic book now.
It's interesting you say that, like, because I've been thinking about this lately, and I wonder if there ever really was a time, though, where things weren't kind of politicized to some degree, where there wasn't this. I mean, I think of growing up and listening to heavy metal music and the parents' reaction and all of these things that were happening, but some of this art was still put out.
But the reaction is not coming from parents now; it's coming from your peers.
I see.
So I think that's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
And hopefully it will pass and become more rational. But my daughter is constantly worried. What did I just say? Something that might have been wrong. And maybe it's because we live in Portland, because people tell me Portland is so extreme. Although I think that may be exaggerated also. But the fear of saying the wrong thing is definitely in the air. That 11-year-olds are picking it up and, oh, you said that, you can't, you just proved you were bad.
Yeah. My daughter sprung that on me the other day. I said something and I honestly can't remember what it was. It wasn't anything wildly, awful or anything by any stretch,
right.
But she said, oh, you can't say that. I said, well, then we need to have a conversation about this, because I'm in my house. We're talking as a family. I'm absolutely allowed to talk about things. I understand, and it actually was a good moment to sit and talk to her about it, to kind of tackle that of like, I understand what you're saying. I wish I could give you the example of that, but I honestly can't remember what the hell it was. But it was a good opportunity to kind of speak about that, about like, I agree. I would never say it if I was in such and such a situation, but here at home, as we're having a discussion and we're the family, we're talking about things, we can kind of talk in a more blunt way amongst each other. And, kind of, I hope you realize that, because I want you to communicate with your kid. But it was interesting, just her reaction to it, just immediate. Oh, Dad, you can't say that. That's not good. You can't say that,
Well, this is kind of the most extreme example for my daughter. Is she went to a mostly white elementary school, and they tried to impart a lot of sensitivity about racism to her. And one was that apparently, I never even thought about this, but it makes sense that Black women are annoyed when white people go and touch their hair, with their different kinds of hairdos than white women have. And so then when she was in a camp where there were a bunch of Black girls with elaborate hairdos, she spent the whole day worrying she might accidentally touch their hair.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I've raised a worrier, but
yeah.
So this is my example of where I think things just go too far. Maybe because they're told to children before the children can integrate them well enough. But so I've got way off the subject, but this is why I think maybe things like taboo are a little harder to do now than they used to be.
Yeah. And then part of me, though, just kind of, that makes me want those kind of things to happen even more. Like, then someone should push it to some degree. And again, I want to be careful with what I'm saying, because I by no stretch mean creating something that's super ignorant and offensive to a certain degree, but you know, it would be nice to push some of the boundaries in a more healthier way. But I guess that's also the problem too. It's difficult, you know, even with the COVID thing right now, even with that, we almost need to be about 8 months later so we can have a few more rational conversations about things. You know what I'm saying? And it's a good point that Ryan brings up about Jackson being an emotional subject for these guys.
I did not know he had committed suicide.
Yeah, and I don't know if I 100% knew that either. I didn't. Maybe I'm mixing up stories. I thought that there was a death, but I thought it was an accident. I didn't know that it was a suicide, so maybe I need to reread my history on him.
And I don't know, you know, I don't know what happened to most of these people. Like, is S. Clay Wilson still around? I have this vague memory of hearing about new comics by him at some point.
He's still around.
And did he become like a fine artist, kind of selling in galleries?
I think possibly. I remember the strangest interaction I had with his wife on Twitter.
Oh,
somehow she stumbled across one of my tweets or something, and we ended up having a conversation kind of in the private message, and she was just talking about how Wilson has been sick for quite a long time. And I want to say the Bubble Zine guy that I was showing off, he recently put on, he was selling some S. Clay Wilson Checker Demon shirts as kind of like a fundraiser to help pay for Wilson's hospital bills. But yeah, and Ryan's saying the same thing. S. Clay Wilson is a vegetable. Yeah,
Oh, that's bad.
No, it's no problem being blunt, Ryan. That's totally fine.
Yeah, but most of these people just became invisible after some point in the 70s. You know, whatever they were doing was just no longer something you could find out about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even Crumb, I really didn't. I guess I would pick up issues of Weirdo, but it wasn't really till that movie came out that he really became kind of. Now we know all about him.
Yeah.
And then he started drawing for the New Yorker, which still weirds me out.
Oh, really? I had no idea about that.
Yeah, he has had over the years a lot of cute little comic strips with his wife in the New Yorker of what we're doing in France now, and that stuff. And excerpts from his Bible's story was in the New Yorker, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I have a real negative opinion of the New Yorker because my parents used to subscribe to it, so they would seem more cultured and upscale.
Okay. They would seem. So do you mean that they didn't actually read it? They just had it on the coffee table kind of thing?
They read the articles, but I think they were quite proud to be New Yorker subscribers. It was a status. They did read it, but it was also a status symbol in their minds to be getting it. It showed which side of the line of cultural distinction they were on. Because I have a big chip on my shoulder in general because my parents were against rock and roll and against comic books and against science fiction. And I had to struggle. I had to fight against them to get any of those things.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the New Yorker is part of the enemy. So when I see these comic book artists move over to the New Yorker, I get upset.
Yeah. They've sold out. That's your version of them selling out. You've gone to the New Yorker.
Yeah, in my mind. Yeah. Adrian Tomine is in the New Yorker a lot. Is that, I don't know how you say his name. And
I think that's right. Yeah.
And now, what's his name? The guy who just released Rusty Brown. Rusty Brown was excerpted in the New Yorker.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm blanking as well. Yes.
Yeah. But you know who I mean.
I want to say that Steph did some some stuff as well too, but I'm not 100% sure if that's true. Ryan is mentioning Tom Veitch and Cam Kennedy's Light and Darkness War. I've got a couple of issues, but I haven't. I don't have them all. That's one of those miniseries I just haven't dug into yet because I think I only have 1 or 2 issues and kind of not at the beginning or the end. You know, just very random ones.
Is that a Vertigo one?
I want to say that the Light and Darkness War, I believe, is an Epic Comics one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's still a lot of Epic I need to explore. They put out a lot of miniseries that I kind of missed.
Chris Ware, he's telling us. Chris Ware,
right? Exactly. Chris Ware is now a regular at the New Yorker too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I shouldn't really blame them. The New Yorker probably pays them like $3,000 or $4,000 a page.
Yeah, it's
probably a very good payday, and in theory, publicizes them to an audience that might actually buy their graphic novels.
Yeah. Or even some of their original art.
Ryan hates Adrian Tomine comics, so Ryan also has strong opinions about things. Anyway, there's other things that I have here, but I don't know if I can find them or whether you want to stay. It must be very late your time.
Oh, it's 1:30. I'm usually up until about 2 anyway. I wanted to ask you one thing before you do sign off, or before we do sign off. How is the thought? I know a while ago you had thoughts, because when I was showing that Bubbles print zine, you'd made a comment about it. How was your thoughts? Because I know you had batted around the idea of doing a print zine. Are you still with that, or what's happening with that? Do you have an exclusive announcement for us or anything?
I have no exclusive announcement. I do.
Okay, all right.
That around I love the idea of zines. I love the idea of being an amateur, doing amateur things. Why, I don't know, but so a long time ago, maybe 2 years ago, I'd said I wanted, or maybe even 3 years ago, I wanted to do a zine and just have anyone who was interested from YouTube send in stuff, and I would print it out and mail it out, physical copies for free to everybody.
Yep.
But it seemed shortly after then that I started realizing I was on the fringe of the YouTube comic community, and I'm not sure how many people. It just didn't feel like a community thing to me anymore, if you know what I'm saying.
Damien, if you're on the fringe, where the hell does that leave me? Down in some
you're on the fringe of the fringe.
Yeah.
So, when I first said it, I could kind of picture a bunch of people who might send me stuff. But by the time, and then life got busy, and by the time I thought about it again, a lot of those people weren't on YouTube anymore, other than yourself and maybe a few others. But so I just wasn't. I still would like to do a zine, and maybe I'll be more. I liked the idea of a community zine that was just for everybody, but maybe I'll just do something that's just me and a few other people who I'll talk to privately. Certainly, Ryan and Gore Vidal and yourself would all be invited. I had all kinds of ideas, like maybe write short scripts and send them to each other, and just do your best to draw the other person's script. Or
really, that's a cool idea.
Or take old comics and remove the dialogue and write your own dialogue in there, and we'll print that.
That's
I also figured we didn't really have to worry about copyright or anything if I'm just sending it amongst friends for free.
100% you would, yeah. Well, you could do some neat kind of mashups between books too. Create a completely different storyline from a bunch of different books, and
that's true. You could cut out panels or pages and create a story out of them. Yeah.
What's the Exquisite Corpse type of idea? Do a couple of panels, send yours to someone else who adds to it, and vice and on and on and on. That Austin English is a good one. Sorry, Damien,
you know of that one too? Yeah,
I do. Yes,
okay. Yeah. I have not heard of it. I'm still, as much as I like all this other stuff, I still am caught up in mostly mainstream comics, as you know.
Yeah.
That takes up a lot of my time.
It's hard to keep up with everything.
Yeah. I don't like to admit my limitations with my comic book collection, but I think I'm going to have to start paring down a lot, in fact.
Yeah. It's just really, really difficult. And especially with I think you and I have talked about this too before, about it almost seems like it's a golden age of indie and art zines and comics and things, where there is so much out there. It really is difficult. Another one that I backed a little while ago was almost like this secret prison. It's almost like a treasury sized,
cool.
not quite a zine with articles and things, but more like an anthology. But I think I want to say that some of the secret prison stuff before this was more zines with articles, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't have anything else. I just have this one. I thought there was an artist in here. Yeah. I think it's Lael.
I guess Ryan has read that too. He loves Secret Prison. I did order 2 copies of Bubbles after seeing yours on Twitter.
Oh, you did? Excellent. Yeah, Lael Westvind. was the highlight, was the standout artist out of this one. And I believe she is featured in one of the Bubbles issues as well, too, with, man, I can't remember the title. Ryan probably knows it. I want to say it's Grip or someone or something, or I can't remember what it is, but her art is incredible, really, really incredible. And I think the stuff that she's doing now is, Grip, is colored as well. And it's really astounding.
Is Secret Prison an ongoing series?
This is issue 8. I haven't followed up.
It is.
I haven't followed up if it's still going. Ian Harker is the editor. And this one is fall 2018. But I haven't looked in since that time, so I don't know if it's still going now.
I typed in secret prison into Google, and I got a brief history of secret prisons in the United States and black sites and inside the CIA's black torture room. So
yeah,
it's gonna take a little more searching to find it.
Yeah, So it's. But the thing is, because it's all still going out there, it's just really difficult. It's like music for me these days too. It's hard to keep up into what's happening out there. It's near impossible. And then plus digging into the past, which I love digging into as well.
I mean, the cool thing is that it's so much easier to dig into the past now, but the downside is you can get so much stuff from the past that you're overwhelmed and you can't pay as much attention to the present.
Yeah. And you still have a pull list, right? You still go weekly? Yeah, or I guess not recently, but before.
No, I did just go this Wednesday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
My shop opened up. I don't think most of the other shops in town have. But I just went in there quickly, said, give me my pull list, and I left. I didn't really want to hang out in there. I just realized I have stuff that I bought from Floating World like a couple of months ago before the COVID thing hit, and meant to show on YouTube and never did. Do you mind if I go grab those things? If I can find
please.
them
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Bill Boychelle, the Copacetic Comics. That's a place that's just popped up on my radar too, just because of the kayfabe guys. Same thing. It was a place I wasn't familiar with because they do the interview with them. And that Grip, Ryan, it does look incredible. So that's really good to know. That's a 2-volume. It was a 2-volume thing. It just came out in a full volume. So that's pretty great. I love the style of that book. I think I've seen it on Instagram, seen some panels on Instagram before I knew too much about the book itself.
So I almost don't remember what I have here. Part of the sickness of buying too many things and also wanting to show them on YouTube is I put them over in a pile and said, I'll look at them later and make a video about it.
It's exactly what I
know that I bought this because I'd heard it mentioned by Ryan. It's called Kramer.
Oh, there you go.
And I don't think I've ever heard, maybe, have you talked about it? Maybe, I don't know. It's kind of it looks kind of like Raw, just at a flash.
I may have mentioned it, but I don't actually own any issues of it.
Yeah, it was outrageously expensive. Mm-hmm. I was in a mood where I was willing to spend money. And you have to when you go to Floating World, because all the cool stuff there is expensive. So you know how sometimes you just turn off that part of your brain and say, okay, today I'm going to spend a lot of money. I don't see
I know that very well
now, but I think it was this was, of all the things I bought there, this was the one I almost didn't buy because of the money. Now I don't see the price, but I think it was well over $20, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, actually, now that I'm re-looking at it, I'm excited. I was complaining about Nothing Like Raw, but this
looks
feels
amazing.
Like it might be quite like, and it's that size. It's that large size. It's a mix of all kinds of art styles and.
Yeah.
I'm not displaying it very well here.
No, I can see. Oh, yeah.
Oh, Trots and Bonnie. Do you remember that from?
I sure as hell do.
National Lampoon.
Yes, there's a collection coming out. I just started following her on Twitter because there was an announcement that I saw someone retweeted where there's finally a Trots and Bonnie collection coming out, which I'm very excited about because I've only ever read a few of the strips. I don't know it super, super well.
National Lampoon got away with a lot when you think of all those people worried about getting arrested for pornography, but
yeah,
somehow they never were under suspicion. Oh, that looks really cool. Yeah, so I'm now realizing I've got to read this sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I get when I was at Floating World? Did I buy this at Floating World or somewhere else? Also, at a comic book store near me, they have trades that they can't sell for like 60% off, and I found some stuff there, and I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. What's this called? Satania?
Is it a no brow, or is it an NBM, or
it's NBM? What is NBM? Okay. Is it known for a particular kind of thing?
I just know that I've seen that book specifically in the bookshop and flipped through it a couple of times, and I can't remember what NBM stands for, to be honest. But I do know that it's that publishing company has a few books out in a bookstore just down the road from where we live.
I think the color appealed to me, and as I was both opening up my wallet and saying, okay, I'm just going to grab things that are totally unfamiliar to me and just see what they're about. And it's much easier to, get Image and Oni independent comics because I can find out what they're about before I buy them.
Yes.
And know what I'm getting into. Let's see there's stuff in the comments. I think we're historically minded while many young readers are not, which creates interesting, if not competitive, conversations. Well, there's my conversations with Matt. Gore Vidal only splurges on Crapax.
Yeah, which talk about obscenity laws. Watch out there, Gore.
And I'm not sure. Ryan says, I believe the New York Review, is it the New York Review of Comics?
Of Comics.
I don't know. Is publishing the collection.
I wonder if that's about the Trotz and Bonnie thing.
Oh, the Trotz and Bonnie. Okay. So.
And then NBM is mostly a Euro Comics reprint house. Yeah.
And then I found this thing called Tongues, and I just liked the look of it.
Yeah.
And so I think I bought all 3 issues that were available, but I haven't gotten around to reading it.
Man, lots of good oversized stuff.
Oversized with I'm a sucker for these flaps when people do these flaps.
Who's the artist on the inside flap? Did it say?
Let's see. No, it's all just part of a pineapple.
Okay.
It's a pineapple. Then you open it up, and there's stuff.
Anders Nielsen. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Does it say Anders Nielsen somewhere?
No. Ryan is saying that. I imagine.
Yeah. So you're familiar with Anders Nielsen. So that's number 3. I wonder if I'm going backwards. This is probably number 2.
This is the one
number 1
from Anders Nielsen. Big Questions, which is a big tome. Wow, I think he had self-published a bunch of issues, and it is beautiful, minimal illustration, and really, really fantastic. So Tongues, that's one that's definitely on my list then.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, he's hardly trying to sell. It's hard to even know that that's the title, Tongues. It doesn't say who the author is on it. The only way I knew it was number 1 is there was a sticker that the store put on it that says number 1 for $13.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to buy. So it's a rare moment when I'm spending this kind of money on things I don't have a really strong reason to. And this must be Tongues number 2, which it looks like it cost me $15. So these things are expensive, especially in this day and age of buying everything discounted from in-stock trades and what have you. Mm-hmm. But
wow,
I felt I was in the mood for something unusual, and these are definitely, unique looking. Oh, and I picked up the latest. There's this free zine newspaper that they publish here in Portland that I sent you a few copies of.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
And it's an artist collective, so each artist just gets 1 page of the newspaper in each issue, and it's all over the place, but it's pretty fun.
It's
makes
so
you
great
realize there's a lot of active artists here in Portland.
Yeah, there sure are.
Tales of Ayul? I don't know. Maybe this isn't the exact pile that I intended originally. I found used this book called Deconstructing the Incal.
Huh.
So it looks like a graphic novel, but it's just a I don't know what you call it, like a coffee table book about the Incal. Okay. And it was owned by a smoker previously. So anyway,
that's cool. I've never seen that before.
Oh, and then I bought this hardback Mobius in French.
Oh, nice.
And I'm not sure what the story behind this is. It's called The Major or Le Major.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been translated into English, but it looked like I might be able to stumble through it with my limited French knowledge.
Yes.
And
I wonder if it's something Airtight Garage offshoot, and I'm wondering if I've seen it in Heavy Metal, scouring the back of my brain, because it sounds very familiar.
It says it was created between 1997 and 2009.
Oh, okay.
And then it's a bunch of French words I can't understand at the moment.
Yeah. I'll get my kids on it.
And it's improv, kind of Mobius doing his improv thing. So, okay. And it's published oddly that there's only stuff on every other. They leave the back of each page blank.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite as thick of a book as I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's related to that Inside Mobius book, which is all kind of improv stuff too.
Yes.
I wonder if Mobius got to the point where it says, well, I'm so famous now, I can just improv my way through everything.
Yeah, I'm just going to go for it.
So anyway, I need to work my way through this. I probably can figure it out most from the pictures, but...
Gore, there's a couple of we have a couple of legitimate Mexican-owned taco places in town, and one of them, I think it's on Saturdays, you can go and you can get tongue tacos, and they are fantastic. They are delicious. They make everything by hand in the shop themselves. Really, really good.
You've had the tongue?
Yeah, and it's delicious.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Huh. Have you ever had brains?
No, I haven't. I haven't had brains. I've eaten a lot of very strange things in my life, but I haven't. There's a few things I've shied away from, and that's one of them. Brains, eyeballs, none of those.
And this one was one published by Floating World themselves. So I just because I was in this liberal mood of picking up things I didn't know what they were. It's called the Immersion Program.
Okay.
It uses very heavy black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Ryan has read every one of these things. Looks a little bit Charles Burns-ish.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's any good or not. What is this? Oh, this is from Koyama Press. And this one I did buy like 60% off. And I hear you talk about Koyama Press a lot. So I thought, well, it's cheap. It's Koyama Press. Let me see what it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like it's a picture book. It's not a comic.
I think she might be going out of business is the last that I had heard.
Is she the one who's moving to just giving grants to artists rather than publishing them now?
Correct. That's exactly right.
So, and was she someone with just an inheritance, maybe, who decided to start publishing?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about her history, Annie Koyama. I don't really know. That could very well be, though.
But I definitely love this art. I don't know if I'll have to read it to figure out if it's a picture book aimed for kids or just for adults who like picture books.
I want to say that they did a mix, though, because I'm thinking... and I'm blanking on the title, but I'm sure that I have one or two Koyama Press that I've read with the kids, and they were very kid friendly as opposed to looking childlike but appeals to adults kind of thing. I'm just blanking on the titles of them. She made her money in movies, is what Ryan C is saying.
Oh, okay. Maybe psychotronic movies. I really like this page. So
yeah.
And then, man, I can't even tell what the name of this comic is. Is it Babel Wax Bodysuit, maybe?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've got that somewhere.
And this art looks familiar. Like there was some underground cartoonist way back when who did something similar to these things. But I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
This one was only $6, so I think I grabbed it because it was relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember visually it was stunning. I don't know if I made it through a read of it.
Well, that's my like Ryan has or works on this website called I always get the name wrong. I think Soulrad, and it's some collective of lovers of these kind of artsy comics.
Yeah,
and they put up reviews every day, I think. But it's a lot for me to process, and a lot of stuff that's more about the art than the story, it seems like.
Yeah.
So this one,
yeah, I remember Ryan from the round table days talking.
Right. So he has his own blog, which is really good. Ryan writes a huge amount. He's a really good essayist. Yeah. He has his own blog, which is really good. It's Ryan's 4-Color Apocalypse, I think it's called.
That's right. Yeah.
And then he's part of this collective, Soulrad, where he must, I'm guessing, write several articles a week there also. Yeah. And then he also has a Patreon page where his patrons get to read other articles he writes. And I like his writing so much, I've become one of his patrons.
And if I remember correctly, I think he's just south of the border from us here in Winnipeg, in Minneapolis, if I'm remembering, or at least in that area.
In the Twin Cities area. I'm not sure which one. Yeah. The Future.
That looks good.
A little making fun of Disney there. That's always dangerous.
Yeah. They're coming for you.
But yeah, this one looks fun on the inside too. Just not enough time in the day.
Wow, yeah.
So, yeah, I have another The Future, or this one's just called Future, but I think it's the same comic.
Okay. Are those Floating World published ones too, or?
I don't think so.
Those look really nice. Glossy as all get out.
They're really well published.
Uh-huh.
I think they're published by someone called Boing Being.
Okay, yeah.
So there's cool stuff out there, but it
sure is.
It feels like I have to spend a lot of money to find out which is actually would be my thing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing that I experienced even when I went to the Beguiling in Toronto. There was a lot of really great kind of more art comics and independently published stuff. But honestly, for a lot of them, what you would get for the price that some of it was going on, that was the biggest thing that kind of turned me off. I totally get everybody's got to make a living. I totally understand that. And you have to make back your printing costs, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, sometimes they're just priced in such a way that it's just, I can't possibly pay $15 to pick up something that's 8 pages. I don't care if it's been fucking, printed in a certain special method. Like there's got to be some sort of balance, but it was great to go to the store and flip through the stuff that I've never seen in person before. Really, really great.
Right. Yeah. So I got a lot of these Duff Futures because they were only $6. Rather, a lot of these things will be like $20 or $15, like you said.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm now that I'm getting myself excited again here, so I'm glad I pulled this pile out.
Yeah.
And they've got, no doubt, just a small print run, and it's mostly color, and so I'm not sure. Someone must just lose money on making things like this.
I'm guessing, yeah.
But sometimes you'll see someone's little stapled together black and white zine, and it will cost $10 or $15. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
This one is from Floating World. It's called The Caterer. Is that what it's
that's what I thought I read too.
try to justify the caterer, Pearl Comics Group, but on the back it does say Floating World. 30 years after the spectacular collapse of Pearl Comics, we celebrate the cause of that collapse, Jeff Lintz, the caterer. So I think it may be making a joke on Silver Age comics and not actually be a real comic that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it even has fake ads in it stuff.
Oh, beauty.
Oh, that's cool. And this one is a pure art zine, I think. Maybe just
I know that one.
Oh, you know this one. Okay.
I've got one or two. I don't have that issue. I've got one or two. Love it.
Yeah, and I think this was, again, compared to a lot of the stuff there, more affordable.
Yes. I think that was the first thing I saw the artist Skinner do a piece in. I think he did a cover of one of the issues, and it blew me away when I first saw his artwork. This
issue is a solo issue by Tetsunori
Tawaraya.
Tawaraya.
Oh, shush. Really?
And I've noticed other books by him at Floating World that were really expensive.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of his stuff, and it's all amazing.
So, but this is not a comic. I mean,
yeah, no, he does more art.
It may be comic adjacent.
Comic stuff. Yeah.
But it's really cool.
Yeah. He did there's a couple of things he's done for Hollow Press, which is an Italian company, and they have it on. I've shown it off in a video a long time ago. It's this Plike paper, which is a plastic-like paper, and it's black, but the beauty with it is when you touch it, you don't leave the marks like you would on some other kind of papers that are just black, and then the images are printed in silver on this really, really black plastic feeling paper, and it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. But for the most part,
did it have his art in it?
It's Tetsunori Tawaraya. Yeah,
Tawaraya.
He's a great artist.
That would be cool on paper like that.
Yeah.
And Ryan says Seattle cartoonists have an advantage with a cheap outfit called Saigon Printing there in town. Maybe I should look into that. And then this is something by someone named Ben Sears called The House of the Black Spot.
Okay, yeah.
I don't recall what attracted me to it. It might be that it was only $12. It's a mini trade. Only $12 and looked kind of fun. It's pretty cartoony, but with nice colors. So I'm not sure what it's about. Doesn't really say.
Mm-hmm. The name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you where from.
Have you shown this one? This one looks familiar to me from your videos.
Yeah, man, John Familia. Yeah. That's a lot of fun. That book. It's really nice and colorful.
It's like the one I couldn't pronounce. Another kind of just wild art book, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that book. I still flip through it. I pull it off the shelf, couple of times a year and just sit and flip through it. I think he did some character design and stuff for Adventure Time, the cartoon, if I remember correctly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I remembered this from yours and picked it up when I saw it.
Yeah.
So I think that's my Floating World haul.
Wow. It's a hell of a haul.
I think it's Floating World and from Cosmic Monkey also.
Okay, yeah. So I think I've talked to you about this before, but so Floating World, mostly that kind of stuff, or I'm assuming every shop nowadays you have to sell some mainstream stuff too, some big two, quote unquote, but is it mostly kind of that kind of thing, art and sort of comics?
I'd say 30% mainstream superhero comics in the back, like where they're like where the pornography would be hidden. That's so you come in, and on one side are vinyl albums, and then there's all these really nice tables with things like Fata Morgana and other things set out upon them, and you pick them up, and then you look at the price and you put them back down, and then there's just all these. It's a very nicely designed shop where you can just sort of browse and wind your way through. So you can completely ignore the superhero section. And they've got So they've got just about everything, and they've, like you said, with the raws up high, and you see the price, and they don't want anyone to steal it, I guess. Or something.
Yeah.
And then Cosmic Monkey is mostly a mainstream comic, but store, but it's huge. So it has a number of sections with alternate comics in it, and some of the alternative comics just are filed in with the regular comics too. So it takes a little more hunting at that place. But
Ryan is saying that Ben Sears is all ages stuff, and Michael DeForge works on Adventure Time. Yeah, there's a bunch of those kind of artists that work on that show. I'm rewatching Adventure Time with Lillian. We just finished the first 2 seasons because she's about the right age for it. We've had to skip 1 or 2 episodes that were a little on the edge of scaring the shit out of her. But for the most part, it's been good so far. And it's a lot of fun. It's such a fun show to watch again because it's just so creative and, just wild. Yeah.
I have never watched it, but I've read all these comics. I read a ton of Adventure Time comics with my daughter, but then we turned on the show, and when she heard the voices, she was freaked out.
Yeah. It's a wild one.
Yeah.
The comic is fun though too. That's a good place to give it a shot. Those and the SpongeBob comics were some of Jaden's favorites when we started reading comics together when he was younger.
I haven't watched or read SpongeBob. I have avoided that too.
Oh man. That's a bonkers fun show as well too.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it seems like there's some of these shows that they just get these very kind of I don't know, just they kind of get these interesting creators attached with them, that are kind of more of an artistic bent as opposed to anything else. So there's just very unique voices that you don't normally see, and they just experiment with stuff, and it's just plain silly, which is also kind of nice too. It's kind of nice to unwind. La Raza, good morning.
It's funny, she's just waking up, I guess. We'll soon be heading to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Right on, Damien. Thanks very much for jumping on with me. It was kind of nice, nice impromptu chat. It's good to see you as always.
Yeah, thanks for letting me take over your show at certain points.
Hey, absolutely. No, it's great. I love it. That's exactly what I wanted. It was exactly what I was in the mood for. Sitting here reading and I kind of want to talk about a few things. So it worked out perfectly. And as I said in the chat, anytime I do these kind of things, if anybody's around and you want to jump on, please feel free to say so in the comments, and I'll gladly send you a link. I love this kind of stuff. Yeah, sorry, La Raza. We've been talking for almost 2.5 hours at this point, so you'll have to go back and watch while you're doing some more creations today. Right on. Thanks very much, everybody, hanging out in the chats. We appreciate it. It's nice to see you all. Ryan, it was great to talk to you again. It feels like it's been a long time since I've seen you, so it was nice for you to pop by.
I would like to get Ryan on my channel and kind of pick his brains, if we can figure out a time.
Does Ryan do live videos? I know he did for a bit, didn't he?
I think he's willing to. I don't know what his schedule's like. I think he works at nights. He may be at work right now.
Yeah. Right on.
We have to talk about Saga for a few minutes before.
Okay, sure. So I think it's the best comic.
We actually already did talk about Saga, right?
We did. It's true. Yeah, he did make it in there. Yeah. And
I think it is pornographic, but only in the good way.
Yeah. Oh, he said he'd do one, Damien. There you go. Ryan C would gladly do one. So there you go.
Right. Well, we're in the middle of trying to figure that out. Okay.
Thanks very much in the chat. I'll end the broadcast and stick around for 15 seconds there, Damien.
Okay.
Night all.
I gotta head to bed.
Did I push the button? I'm pulling an Adam here, people. There we go. End broadcast. Yeah, it still says we are. Huh. Stick with us here, people. I'll figure it out at some point. Hey, there we go.